It's interesting to know that apart from the Bible, there are so many historical records that prove the existence of Jesus, what he did, and all. Not in details though, but there's evidence of his existence in history, and his teachings are there, right? And then talking about whether he is divine or not. It's not just Africans that we used to say that Christianity is not in our culture. Our foreparents were not worshiping this God. It's strange, and so we're not going to accept it. Even the Asian people too, there are some of them that are like that.
Even the Israelites themselves, there are people that refuse to accept because
Jesus, they refuse to accept Jesus, but Almighty God, they believe that they're still worshiping him, but they don't believe in Jesus. Yes. So talking about Christianity as a whole, and even the Almighty God that Jesus is leading us to, he's the way to. There are so many people that are like, this is not our God, because now in the traditional sense, now in Nigeria, we have the Ogun and the other gods like that, right? So in other places too, they have their own gods. In India, they have their own gods, right? So now, like the Chinese now, for example, they tell that this is not ours. We're not going to accept Christianity, or even going to persecute Christians, because we've had situations whereby they were persecuting Christians, right? And they're like, there's no trace of this in our history. Our foreparents were not worshiping this God, and that's it. But it's interesting to know that the ancient Chinese writing is like the whole thing, almost the whole thing was inspired by the Genesis story, from Adam and Eve to the serpent that deceived her, to the flood of Noah, like Noah's Ark and all the rest. If you go through the ancient writing, you'll see that it was clearly inspired by that. But it's so unfortunate that so much history is being erased in our generation, and now they are no longer even using the ancient writing. It's just few people that are still using it because they feel like it's so bulky, like it slows them down basically, and so they have modernized the writing so that it can be faster. You know, theirs is not alphabet. They don't really spell out a word. They paint a picture that describes the concept that you're trying to that you're trying to pass across. The concept, they paint a picture. Let me say they draw a picture. So they basically draw a picture. So now we won't get into that because it's going to make this video super long, but you can check it, like the ancient Chinese writing and how it is somehow telling the Genesis story. You can go and check that. And so like it's right there in their history, but now because they have a modernized way of writing it, they don't see it that way. And talking about evidence in their history, they have a temple that is to the God of heaven. There's no image in that temple. They said that it's the God of heaven, and that is like standing there as an evidence. Because who is the God of heaven now? And there's no image to represent this God. We know that our God, you cannot like use an image to represent him, because he doesn't believe in like idolatry, like you carving out an image and saying that this is your God. He's undescribable, and you cannot like limit him to a particular form or anything. And so that, to me, I feel like that temple is there as a sign that there was a time that your ancestors worshipped this God of heaven that cannot be depicted using a picture. And that's pointing to the God that we Christians are worshiping, right? And then they had a king. There's a certain dynasty in China, and the king of that regime, he used to see visions, and he would ask his servant to write the vision. And so during the time that the birth of Jesus was recorded, he noticed a bright star. It was written in his book, that in his write-up, that around that time he saw a bright star, and it was so special and different from the rest. It was unique, and he just recorded that. And then we know that in the Bible, that was the time that Jesus was born, right? And wise men from the east saw the star, and that led them to Jesus. And I checked, like, where is China located? China happens to be at the east side of Israel. I'm not saying that the wise men are from China, but people from the east saw the star. The star was visible to people in the East. And since China happens to be in the East, someone in China happened to see it. And thank God he was someone of power and authority. Somebody can see.
The wise men painting in children's book looks like Chinese ropes.
Really?
You see very long ropes though.
Okay. So I thank God he is a king, because an ordinary man can see this and nobody will pay attention to it, like nobody will care. But this is someone in authority, so at least they document it and they keep it as something that is special. And that's not just the end. This same king, during the time that the death of Jesus was recorded to have happened, he said that he saw a vision. He didn't know that there was someone called Jesus that was existing somewhere in his own side of the world. He saw a vision and he saw eclipse happening, right? Sun was covered by the moon and then there was darkness. And the interpretation of that vision to him was that a son from above, like someone from above, right, was coming to die for the sin of the world. That was his interpretation. And later on, the eclipse happened. Like in real life, it happened. It was recorded in the Bible that when Jesus died, there was darkness. There was earthquake, even though he did not record earthquake in his own write-up because he was in another land, right? Maybe the earthquake was around Jerusalem and the land of Israel. But he saw, like he witnessed an eclipse. And then 3 days after that eclipse, he now saw a rainbow cycling the sun. I will know that 3 days after Jesus resurrected, right? And so what does a rainbow signify? It signifies the promise of God, saying that he's not going to consume or destroy the whole earth, right? It's like God's promise to mankind. And like there are so many other proofs that Jesus is divine and he is the Son of God. And so we have built the credibility of the Bible now because it is also in line with other facts that are outside the Bible.